Good afternoon, students. In the last class, we discussed up to the vectors. So today we start with the topic motion in a plane. So motion in a straight line means any object which is moving in one dimension. So that we call as motion in one dimension or motion in a straight line or rectilinear motion. So here motion in a plane. So plane means any object which is moving. It uses the two coordinate systems, that is two coordinate axis. So that type of motion we call as motion in a plane, right? So here we using any two coordinate axis. So I am using here xy coordinate axis. So here x and y in this plane, any object is moving. So that type of motion we call as motion in a plane, right? So any object which is moving like this, right? So initially the position of the object is we take it as some p. So after certain time t, it moves to the another point. We take that one as p dash, right? So that means object is moving in both the x coordinate and along with the y coordinate. So that type of motion we call as motion in a plane, right? So motion in a plane means the object covers, as the object is moving in motion in a plane, that means the object covers the distance or displacement along x-axis and also along y-axis, right? So ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಒಂದು object plane ಅಲ್ಲಿ move ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ that means that object has to cover both the displacements along x direction and also along y direction. So if it is covering only along x direction means that type of motion is we call as motion in a straight line or rectilinear motion. So ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ one direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ object displace ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ motion in a straight line ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ object ಎರಡು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರೆ, ಎರಡು ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು motion in a plane anta karithivi. For example, if I am considering the point P, so here the position of the point P we can represent that is x comma y. That means this particle is at x distance from the origin and y distance from the origin. So that we take it as x comma y. That means it has a displacement along x-axis and also displacement along y-axis. So if we take a position of p dash, so this we can take as x1 comma y1. That means x1 is the position of the object with respect to the origin and y1 is the position of the object after certain time t along y-axis. So x-axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಿದೆ, along y-axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಇನ್ ಎ ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ we having two displacement, one is along x-axis and another one is along y-axis. So how we relate the equation of motion in a plane means, so ನಮಗೆ equation of motion in a straight line ಏನಿದೆ, s is equals to ut plus half at square, right? So that means s is the displacement, u is the initial velocity, t is the time taken and a is the acceleration. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ displacement x-axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so here the displacement we can take x and y. So displacement ಎರಡರಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ again displacement along x-axis and displacement along y-axis with the same time t. That means we have the two velocities. One is velocity along x-axis and another one is velocity along y-axis. That is change in displacement along x-axis to the time taken, that we call as the velocity, and change in the displacement along y-axis with respect to time, that we call as the velocity along y-axis. Right? So ನಮಗೆ ಎರಡು velocities ಇದೆ. So ಎರಡು velocities ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ automatically we having two acceleration. One is acceleration along x-axis and another one is the acceleration along y-axis. Right? So acceleration is rate of change of velocity with respect to x-axis and rate of change of velocity with respect to y-axis. So those are the acceleration along x-axis and acceleration along y-axis. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ it has two displacements and two velocities and two accelerations, right? So displacement initially always we take an origin. ಸೊ ಆರಿಜಿನ್ ಇಂದ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಆರಿಜಿನ್ ಇಂದ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ x minus x naught ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ x naught is the origin, so x naught we can take 0, right? So displacement we can directly write s is equals to x or x minus x naught, that is equals to, so ಇಲ್ಲಿ x naught origin ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇದು 0 ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So directly we can write x is equals to ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಬರೆಯಬಹುದು. So this we can take as a general form ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ displacement is change in distance. So change in distance is x minus x naught. X naught is the initial position and x is the final position of the object, right? So x minus x naught, that is equals to, here we have the velocity u. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ velocity ಯಾವುದು ತಗೋಬೇಕು, that is the velocity which is along the x axis, so that is ux into t, right? Plus of as it is and acceleration. So acceleration ಯಾವುದು ತಗೋಬೇಕು, again acceleration along x axis at square. So time ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂ ನಮಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Time along x axis ಮತ್ತೆ time along y axis ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we can take general that one as the time t. So now the same wise displacement along y axis we can write y minus y naught, that is equals to velocity along y axis into time t plus half ay t square, right? So these are the two equations in terms of displacement. So equations of motion alli nಮಗೆ ಎರಡು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. One is x and along y. So ಎರಡು displacement type, right? So next ಎರಡು velocities ಇದೆ. So general we have one velocities, right? So ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು velocity v ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, so this is velocity which is moving in two dimension, means that we can represent vx I cap plus vy j cap. So vx is the magnitude of the velocity along x axis, vy is the magnitude of velocity along y axis, right? So vx we can define as rate of change of displacement with respect to time, that is dx by dt. That means change in displacement along x axis with respect to time. So similarly vy, that is the velocity along y axis, we can define that one as dy by dt. That is change in vertical displacement, that is y axis displacement to the time taken, right? So next same wise acceleration a is equals to ax I cap plus ay j cap, right? Where ax is the acceleration along x axis and I is the direction, and ay is the acceleration along y axis and j represents the direction, right? So where ax is equals to dvx by dt. So that means change in velocity along x axis to the time taken, and ay is equals to dvy by dt, that is change in velocity along y axis with respect to time. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ suffix x ಮತ್ತು y ಏನು ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, that means velocity along x axis and velocity along y axis, right? So this is about the motion in a plane. So motion in a plane ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೊಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಎರಡು ವೆಲಾಸಿಟೀಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಎರಡು ಆಕ್ಸಲರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So other equations togondre, this is the displacement along x axis, displacement along y axis, velocity along x axis, velocity along y axis, and acceleration along x axis, acceleration along y axis. So again we get total 6 components irutte, that means 2 displacements, 2 velocities and 2 accelerations, right? So this is the acceleration in vector form, velocity in vector form, right? So in this chapter we are mainly discussing the two examples for motion in a plane, right? So in that first one is projectile, or we call that one as projectile motion, right? So the second one is uniform circular motion. So these are the two examples for motion in a plane, right? So motion in a plane ali, that means any object which is traveling in both the x and y coordinates antaduna ನಾವು motion in a plane ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಎರಡು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ. So one is projectile motion and another one is uniform circular motion, right? So what is projectile motion or what is projectile. So definitions e topically tumba important. So definition 1 marks ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ 2 marks ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, right? So projectile motion ಅಂತನಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ projectile ಅಂತನಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, right? So projectile ಅಂದ್ರೆ again it is a plane, so considering the axis x and y axis, right? Any particle which is moving in a direction, so ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ which is making an angle theta with the horizontal under the action of gravity, so that type of motion we call as projectile motion or we call that one as projectile, right? So any object which is moving in a direction, so ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, so direction ಯಾವ ತರ ಇರಬೇಕು, that makes an angle theta with the horizontal, right? So any particle, so if we consider this one as one ball or any object or any particle, so this ball is moving in any direction making an angle theta with the horizontal under the action of gravity, so that gives what the definition of the projectile or projectile motion, right? So it gives the path, right? So this is the path of the projectile and it moves under the action of gravity, that means gravitational force ಇಂದ ಈ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, so ಅಂತ ಮೋಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ projectile motion ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. So the path traced by the projectile is parabola. So 1 marks 2 marks ಗೆ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So name the path which is projected by the projectile ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, so the path ಯಾವ ಶೇಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ parabolic shape ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So what is projectile? Any particle or an object moving in a direction making an angle theta with the horizontal under the action of gravity, so that we call as projectile or projectile motion, right? So the trace or path which is projected by the projectile is parabola. So ನಾವು ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ some angle ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಯಾವ ಶೇಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ parabolic shape ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So next example for the projectile. So a ball is thrown by a fielder. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ 2 ಡೈಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂಡರ್ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಬೋಲಿಕ್ ಪಾತ್ ನ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ ದಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಮೋಷನ್. ಸೊ ಬಾಲ್ ಇಸ್ ಥ್ರೋನ್ ಬೈ ಅ ಫೀಲ್ಡರ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ರಿಕೆಟ್ ಆಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಬ್ಬ ಫೀಲ್ಡರ್ ನ ಬಾಲ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಮಾಡ್ದ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಯಾವ ಶೇಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಬಾಲ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಬೋಲಿಕ್ ಪಾತ್. ಸೊ ಹೈಟ್ ವೇರಿ ಆಗಬಹುದು ಬಟ್ ದ ಪಾತ್ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಬೋಲಾ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಜಾವೆಲಿನ್ ಥ್ರೋ, discus throw, right? Shot put. So ಇವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? So those are all example for the projectile motion, right? So what is projectile? The path traced by the projectile is parabola. Then examples for the projectile, right? So along this we have few more definitions. So that is, one is angle of projection. So angle of projection is denoted by theta, right? The angle with which the projectile is projected, so that angle we call as angle of projection. So now ಯಾವ angle ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಲ್ ನ ಅಥವಾ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, so ಅಂತ angle ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, angle of projection ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, right? So that is always denoted by theta. Next, projectile velocity. So projectile velocity is the velocity with which the object is moving or the projectile is moving. So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು velocity ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು object move ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ velocity ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, projectile velocity, and it is denoted by u. So u ನ ನಾವು projectile velocity ಅಂತ denote ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ, right? So next is time of flight. So ಇವೆಲ್ಲ definitions important, so you need to remember or you need to mark up all these definitions, right? So time of flight, it is denoted by t. So it is the time in it is the time in which the projectile is in air. So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಏರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಇಟ್ ರೀಚಸ್ ಟು ದ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್. ಸೊ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳುತ್ತೋ, ಸೊ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್, right? So what is time of flight? The time during which the projectile is in air. So projectile air ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, time of flight, and it is denoted by capital T, right? So next definition is range of flight. So range of flight, it is denoted by R. So range na R ಅಂತ denote ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. So what is range of flight means? So range of flight or range of projectile. So range ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ the maximum distance traveled, that is the horizontal distance. So distance traveled ಅಂದ್ರೆ we need to clearly mention the horizontal distance. So the maximum horizontal distance traveled by the projectile, so that we call as the range of projectile, right? So ಎಷ್ಟು maximum distance along horizontal move ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, so ಅಂತದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, range ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Range of flight, or simply we call that one as range, right? So the maximum horizontal distance covered by an projectile or covered by an object, so that we call as range of flight, right? So next, maximum height. So maximum height or height of a flight, height of a projectile. So height we denoted by capital H, right? So maximum height is the maximum vertical distance traveled by the projectile, so that we call as maximum height of the projectile. So initially projectile is an example for motion in a plane. So motion in a plane alli namage ಎರಡು ಇರುತ್ತೆ, displacement, one is along x axis and another one is along y axis. So the maximum distance traveled along x axis na ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, range ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. The maximum vertical distance na ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, that one is the height, right? So ಎರಡು ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ displacement, one is along horizontal and along another one is the vertical. So vertical, this point is the maximum height. So ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So that maximum height we call as the height of the, that is maximum height of the projectile. So height ಗೆ height ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So maximum horizontal distance ಗೆ ಏನ್ ನೇಮ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ, range of a projectile ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ. So definitions ತುಂಬಾ important. So definitions ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ next we have the derivation. So ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ, the path of a projectile traced by an object or traced by a projectile is parabola. So parabola ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ we need to prove this in the mathematical form. So ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ಈಕ್ವೇಷನ್ ಬರಬೇಕು, parabolic equation ಬರಬೇಕು. Then only we can say that path of a projectile is parabola. So this is also important for 5 marks. Path of a projectile is parabola, right? So 5 marks ge tumba important. So again the same diagram. So in topically 3 to 4 derivations barutte. So ella derivations to same diagram matte same explanation irutte, right? X and y axis, this is the part traced by the projectile. So projectile is moving with a velocity u, making an angle theta with the horizontal, right? So this gives the maximum range, that is R, and here it is the maximum height h. So it is to labeling of the diagram, right? So object na ನಾವು project ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ with an velocity u. So this velocity makes an angle theta with the horizontal. So theta horizontal ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we can resolve the velocity in two velocities. One is horizontal velocity and another one is vertical velocity. So here velocity ಬರುತ್ತೆ, as it is moving under the action of gravity. So acceleration is acting always downwards, that is vertically projected upwards ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವು acceleration ನ ಏನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, minus g j cap, right? So this is the vector representation of the acceleration. So acceleration is equals to minus g j cap. That means ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋಗೆ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಯಾವುದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಡ್ಯೂ ಟು ದ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟಿ. ಸೊ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟಿ is always acting vertically downward but the object is moving vertically upward, hence we taken that one as minus g j cap. So acceleration along y axis. So this indicates what the acceleration. So now the general acceleration a is equals to compare with a is I cap plus a by j cap. Right, so comparing this acceleration with the standard relation. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ತರದ್ದು I cap ಇಲ್ಲ, so that means acceleration along x axis that is equals to 0, right? So from this relation we can say acceleration along x axis is 0 and acceleration along y axis that is equals to minus g. So acceleration y axis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ minus g ಇರುತ್ತೆ, acceleration along x axis ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ 0. So acceleration along x axis is 0, that means acceleration 0 ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ that means the object is moving with a constant velocity along horizontal. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ velocity ಇದೆ, so this velocity has a two components, one is ux and another one is uy, right? So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು object projectile ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನನಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು velocities ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ two displacements ಜೊತೆಗೆ two velocity ಇದೆ, one is velocity along x axis and another one is velocity along y axis. So acceleration along x axis is 0, nothing but the ux value is remains constant. So ux is constant, that means it moving with the uniform velocity that is along x axis. So along x axis the velocity ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. For example ux value 10 meter per second along horizontal ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ at each and every point on the projectile ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆಗೂ ನಮಗೆ horizontal velocity ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು that is the acceleration, right? So ux is constant and uy is continuously varying. So when it reaches the maximum height here, so we have only the ux, so at this point uy is 0. When it reaches the maximum height, vertical velocity is 0 because it has some initial velocity as it goes upward. So after reaching certain height, its velocity becomes 0, right? So only the vertical velocity becomes 0, horizontal velocity remains constant, that is ux, right? So ux ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಮಗೆ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಮಗೆ remains same ಇರುತ್ತೆ, right? So now resolving the components, u is equals to ux I cap plus uy j cap, right? So that is the velocity. So acceleration ಯಾವ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅದೇ ತರ ನಾವು velocity ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ, now resolving the component along horizontal and along vertical. So if we resolve the velocity component, so we get ux is equals to u cos theta and uy is equals to u sin theta. So these are the two velocities which is along the x axis and along y axis, right? So next we need to find the displacement. Now we need to find the displacement along x axis and along y axis. So we have the relation x that is u cos theta, right? So now substituting t in the second equation, that is the vertical displacement, right? So y is equals to uy, we have u sin theta into t value is x divided by u cos theta plus 1 by 2. So a value that is ay, x and ay. So ay value ಏನಿದೆ ನಮಗೆ minus g ಇದೆ, right? So that we can take minus g into t is again x divided by u cos theta whole square, right? So in the numerator we have u, in the denominator u get cancelled. So from the trigonometry sin theta by cos theta we can take that one as tan theta into x. So plus into minus, minus 1 by 2 g by u square cos square theta into x square, right? So if you simplify model, we get this relation. So this is in the form of standard mathematical relation, that is y is equals to ax plus bx square, where a is equals to tan theta and b is equals to minus 1 by 2 g by u square cos square theta, right? So this is the form of parabola. So ಇದು ನಮಗೆ mathematics relation, that is y is equals to ax plus bx square. So now derive ಮಾಡಿರೋ relation is similar to that of the mathematical form. So hence the relation gives the projectile of a projectile. So path of a projectile is parabola. So ಇದು ನಾವು find ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋ relation y is equals to tan theta into x minus g by 2 u square cos square theta into x square. So this is in the form of a standard parabolic equation. Hence we proved that path of a projectile is parabola. So tumba important for 5 marks, right? So diagram, explanation, then we need to write the final conclusion, that is y is equals to tan theta into x minus g by 2 u square cos square theta into x square, right? So this is the derivation for a path of a projectile is parabola, right? So important ಯಾವುದು projectile definition. So ಯಾವ path trace ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ parabolic path ನ trace ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. So ಅದಕ್ಕೆ mathematical relation ಕೂಡ ಇದೆ. So that is the very important, right? So next again we need to find the relations for time of flight, range of flight and height of the flight, right? So ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮಗೆ same diagram, same explanation. So ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ same ಇರುತ್ತೆ, but ಎಲ್ಲಿ change ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ while substituting the values. So value substitute ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, derivation change ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, right? So up to here so ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ remains same ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So first, time of flight. So that is denoted by t. So time of flight ಅಂದ್ರೆ projectile air ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ, so that means it covers the horizontal displacement along vertical displacement. So vertical displacement when it reaches the maximum height and again it comes back to so 0 ಇಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ 0 ಗೆ ಬಂದು ರೀಚ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ, ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಬೈ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರಿಂಗ್ vertical displacement we can find the value, that is the t value we can find by using the vertical displacement. So for vertical displacement we need to use the relation vertical displacement y, right? So y is equals to u by t plus 1 by 2 a by t square, right? So vertical displacement starts from the ground and it ends at the ground, right? So ground inda yavadru object na throw madidre again it reaches to the ground. So ground inda start agi ground ge reach agtide, that means initial position matte final position eradu ground ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ so vertical displacement ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ 0 ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, right? So 0 that is equals to uy, that is u sin theta. So we are going to find the total time taken from starting point to ending point, that we taken as time of flight. So t sin theta, u sin theta into t. So replacing small t with the capital T, right? So plus 1 by 2, a by value is minus g, so t value is capital T square, right? So 0 is equals to u sin theta into t minus half g t square, right? So minus half gt square, if we shift to the LHS it becomes plus half gt square, that is equals to u sin theta into t. So RHS ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1 t ಇದೆ, LHS ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1 t ಇದೆ, get cancelled. So we need to find the t. So t is equals to 2u sin theta divided by g. So this gives what, the relation for time of flight. So ನಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ 1 marks ಗೆ, write the expression for time of flight ಅಂದ್ರೆ only you need to write the formula ಬರ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು you need to explain the terms. So terms na explain ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, where u is the velocity and theta is the angle of projection and g is the acceleration due to gravity, right? So three relations ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. Write the expression for time of flight ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ you directly need to write the relation, no need to derive all these things, right? 1 marks ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ 2 marks ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ directly you need to write the relation, right? So this is for the first one. Next, second one, range of flight. So range means horizontal distance. So horizontal distance means we need to take horizontal displacement x, right? So x is equals to uxt plus half ax t square, right? So but ax value is 0, so this whole term becomes 0. So ux value is, so x na navenata togobodu r, so ux value in togobodu u cos theta, right? So time of flight. So total time ತರ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೂ displacement ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂ ಸೇಮ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so we can take capital T. So capital T value will ಬಂದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ substituting here 2u sin theta divided by g, right? So range r is equals to u into u, we can write that one as u square. So here 2 sin theta into cos theta, we can write that one as sin 2 theta divided by g. So this gives what? The range, right? So vertical displacement consider ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ time of flight, displacement na consider ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ range ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, because we are going to find the horizontal displacement, right? So usually one more condition, that is one more important point, when we get in the r value is maximum, that is when theta is equals to 45 degree, then we getting r is maximum. So yaವಾಗ ನಮಗೆ maximum range ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ when theta value is 45 degree. So sin 2 into 45 90, so sin 90 is 1 into u square by g is maximum value, so that we can take r maximum. Or if they ask for the expression to write the maximum horizontal range, then r maximum is equals to, you can write u square by g, right? So this is one important point e concept alli, right? So the last remaining one is maximum height. So maximum height means again we need to consider the vertical displacement. So by taking the relation y is equals to, so uyt plus half ay t square, right? So y is the vertical displacement, so that we can take height. So maximum height. So when we getting the maximum height, so when it reaches here, we get the maximum height. ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೆಂಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸೆಂಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಫ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ವರೆಗೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, ಸೊ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೆಂಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ u sin theta into u cos theta divided by g. So minus 1 by 2 g into u cos theta u sin theta. So here also u sin theta by g whole square, right? So only we are taken time of ascent. So time of ascent is u sin theta divided by g, right? So half value ವರೆಗೂ ನೋಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ time of ascent ನ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. So simplifying here, h is equals to u square sin square theta by g minus 1 by 2 g into u square sin square theta divided by g square. So g square get cancels. So if we take a common and simplification, we get the final expression h is equals to u square sin square theta by 2g. So this is for the maximum height. That means the maximum vertical displacement, right? So ಈ ತ್ರೀ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಡಿರೈವೇಶನ್ ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಆಂಗಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯಬೇಕು. ಸೇಮ್ ಅದೇ ತರನೇ ರೇಂಜ್ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯಬೇಕು, ಅದೇ ತರನೇ h ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್? So this is about the projectile motion. So idistu yavu mele ide andre projectile motions. So projectile motions are important definitions next mathematical relations, next derivation. So ಈ ಮೂರು ಕೂಡ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಲೆಂತಿ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್, ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ 11 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ 1 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ 5 + 5 5 + 3 8 2 10 + 1 11. ಸೊ 5 ಮೇನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ, 5 ಮೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ನೀವೇ ಗೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. 1 ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ 1 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಐದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಗಿವ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ what is range, give the expression for the range of a projectile ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ what is range of projectile when it is maximum ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಎರಡು ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ರಿಸಲ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನಿಟ್ಯೂಡ್ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾತ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಬೋಲಾ. ಸೊ ಎರಡರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಜಂಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಒಂದು ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಐದರ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಗೆ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ರೇಂಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಗೆ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಹೈಟ್ ಗೆ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಾಸಿಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ರೈಟ್. On the last topic, uniform circular motion. So name itself says circular motion. So any object which traces a circular path with a constant speed, so that type of motion we call as uniform circular motion, right. So ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ it traces the circular path. So ಅದು ಯಾವ ಪಾತ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಆಗೋಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪಾತ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ವಿತ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್. ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, or we can say that one as variable velocity. So variable velocity ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅಥವಾ speed constant. So maximum we refer that one as a constant speed. So any object or any particle which is traces the circular path with a constant speed, so that type of motion we call as uniform circular motion. Uniform means speed constant irutte at each and every point, and speed constant irodrinda adana ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು uniform circular motion ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. So acceleration in this motion we are calling that one as the centripetal acceleration. So the derivation is that, right. So consider a particle which is moving in a circular path with a radius r, that is from the center of the circle, right. So initially the position of a particle is p. After certain time t, it changes its position to d. So drawing the position vector at p, that is vector r, and after certain time t, the object is traveled to the p dash point. So again here by drawing the position vector r dash, right. So the displacement between p and p dash is the straight line joining between initial point to the final point. So this vector we call as displacement vector, that is delta r, right. So here we are getting the velocity. So this velocity we call that one as the instantaneous velocity at that particular point, right. So here also we getting the velocity v dash, right. So tangentially draw ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ velocity ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂತ velocity ನ ನಾವು instantaneous velocity ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, right. So as the particle is moving with a variable velocity means velocity goes on changing. As velocity changes, then we are getting the acceleration. So velocity constant ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ acceleration 0 ಇರುತ್ತೆ, as previous ನಾವು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. So discuss ಮಾಡದಲ್ಲ ax is equals to 0, acceleration 0 ಇದೆ, nothing but ux is constant. So velocity along x-axis is constant, but here velocity is variable, speed is constant. So ಎರಡು different meaning ಇದೆ. So speed constant ಅಂದ್ರೆ only the magnitude constant irutte. That means velocity at p we have 5 meter per second. So velocity at p dash again we have 5 meter per second. That means the magnitude of the velocity remains same. So ಅದನ್ನ other word ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ speed remains same but direction change ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ. As direction changes, magnitude remains same ಇದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ velocity. So that means change in velocity. As change in velocity means again we are getting the acceleration. So velocity change ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ acceleration ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Velocity constant ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ನಮಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ acceleration 0 right? So to find the acceleration, so as the velocity is moving with a constant speed, that means magnitude same irodrinda length of the vector ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ same ಇರುತ್ತೆ because velocity is a vector. So we can take this one as v vector and so same wise ಇಲ್ಲಿ draw ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ drawing parallel here we getting v dash. So ಎರಡರದ್ದು length same ಇದೆ. So this difference we get is delta v. So that we getting the direction of the acceleration that is inside. So this in this direction the acceleration is acting. So iduna now length na decrease ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದಾಗೆಲ್ಲ at this particular point we are getting the acceleration. So ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. So circular motion at this point p. So this gives what velocity and this gives what the centripetal acceleration. So acceleration and the velocity ಎರಡು perpendicular ಇರುತ್ತೆ. That means when delta t tends to 0 right? So ಇಲ್ಲಿ change in time ತಗೊಂತಾ ಇದೆ. So ಅದನ್ನ small change ಅಂದ್ರೆ delta t. So ಈ delta t value ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ decrease ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. So when it comes to 0, so that point becomes p. So ಈ p ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ velocity v ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So centripetal acceleration it is always acts towards the center of the circle right? So again to find the magnitude of the acceleration, centripetal acceleration AC, that is equals to limit delta t tends to 0 delta v divided by delta t right? So this is the instantaneous acceleration or centripetal acceleration. Definition is limit delta t tends to 0 change in velocity with respect to change in time right? So now by considering the triangles O P P dash and again here A B C. So those two are similar triangles right? So triangle OPP dash and triangle ABC are similar triangles. So ಎರಡು similar triangles ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎರಡರದ್ದು sides ನ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು equate ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. We can take the ratios of the sides of a triangle right? So ratios ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ delta v divided by delta r right? So this one is the change in velocity, this is the change in displacement. So ಎರಡು equal ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we can take the ratio delta v by delta r that is equals to v divided by r. So ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು one side ನ ನಾವು represent ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು either AB side ಅಥವಾ AC side. So v dash by r dash ಅಂತನಾದ್ರೂ ತಗೋಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ v by r ಅಂತನಾದ್ರೂ ತಗೋಬಹುದು because all three sides are same ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದನ್ನಾದ್ರೂ ರೇಷಿಯೋ ತಗೋಬಹುದು. So initial point ನ ನಾವು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we can take the ratio v by r. So here in the definition we want delta v. So from this relation delta v is equals to v by r into delta r right? So calling this one as first equation. So this is second equation. So substitute equation 2 in equation 1. So delta v value na illige substitute ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಯಾವುದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ equation 1. So AC is equals to limit delta t tends to 0. So in place of delta v we can write v divided by r into delta r divided by delta t right? So v ಮತ್ತೆ r constant ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we can take all outside. So v by r limit delta t tends to 0 that gives what delta r by delta t. So again this is the relation which gives the definition of the instantaneous velocity. So instantaneous velocity definition on nodidre limit delta t tends to 0 delta r by delta t. So this we can write that one as the instantaneous velocity. So AC is equals to v divided by r into v. So AC is equals to v square divided by r, where r is the radius of the circle and v is the velocity right? So v r, so v is the velocity of the particles and r is the radius. So this is for the centripetal acceleration. Right? So this derivation. So this is also for important for 5 marks. So uniform circular motion alli centripetal acceleration derivation kedidre you need to write these two diagrams. So 1 and 2. So idu namage necessary illa because ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಲಿಮಿಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು. So otherwise to compare these two triangles means we need these two triangles, right? So proper agirbeku. So direction of centripetal acceleration is always acts towards the center of the circle, right? So the next continue part andre in terms of angular displacement. So delta theta is the angular displacement, right? So angular displacement is denoted by delta theta. So angular displacement is so up to now here we are discussing v means linear velocity. So idu namage system of particles hogre in detail ಆಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. angular velocity ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, angular acceleration ಅಂದ್ರೇನು. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು acceleration ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ so angular displacement is denoted by delta theta. So angular displacement ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ same wise we have angular velocity. So angular velocity is denoted by omega. It is defined as angular displacement to the time taken. So angular displacement is delta theta. So divided by delta t. So normal velocity is v is equals to s by t, right? So displacement by time taken. So angular velocity is angular displacement by angular time taken, right? So again by using this relation v is equals to s by t. So displacement linear displacement is that, right? So here we can change this r to s, that is the displacement delta s. So if the angle delta theta is very small, then tan theta we can write delta theta, that is tan of delta theta is equals to opposite side by adjacent side. So that is delta s divided by delta t. So from this we can write delta s is equals to delta theta. Delta is divided by r. So delta theta direction omega irutte, so rotate ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So ಇದು linear velocity, tangential direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ velocity ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ linear velocity, angular ಅಲ್ಲಿ velocity ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ angular velocity, right? So up to this we have in the syllabus, right? So it is to circular motion definition, centripetal acceleration definition and this derivation. So idu kuda tumba important. So in chapter alli namage 4 derivations barutte. So 4 kuda tumba important. So practice ಮಾಡಿ, right? So by this we completed the topic uniform circular motion. So ನಾಳೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಆಗಿ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಸೊ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂದಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ. ಸೊ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಅಂದಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಬರೀಬೇಕು, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ನೆಸೆಸಿಟಿ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ವೆರೆವರ್ ನೆಸೆಸಿಟಿ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ, right? So problem solve ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ವಿತೌಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ ಗೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ದಲೇ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, right? So all the best, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿ.